heart to the community. It is fantastic to be here this morning with you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jared Davis. I'm the chair-elect of the Beacon Council, and along with Ernie Diaz, our chair, we welcome you all. We're thrilled to have you here. We're going to start with a slight treat. If you could all, and I want you to clap as loud as possible, give a welcome to Kimberly Lampinas. If we could have her come up. She's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance as well as a song. Kimberly, come on up.
Kimberly, thank you very much. That's going to be hard to follow.
We can't talk.
Yeah, no, I got it. One Community, One Goal is a 5-year strategic plan to strengthen the Miami-Dade economy and bring high-paying jobs to our community. We've gathered here in this wonderful venue, and thank you to the University of Miami, to share the accomplishments of this community-wide initiative to diversify the economy and develop the local workforce. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge some of our VIPs that have contributed to this great effort. I would ask that you please hold your applause until the end. Once again, thank you all for being here and participating in this effort. I'll start off with Florida Memorial University President Rosalind Artis. Thank you. FIU President Mark Rosenberg. University of Miami President Julio Frank. We have Commissioner Levine Cava with us. Yeah. We have City of Miami Commissioner Frank Carollo with us. Village of Pinecrest Vice Mayor James McDonald. We also have President and CEO of Greater Miami Visitors and Convention Bureau, Mr. Bill Talbert. We have President and CEO of United Way, Harv Mogul. And I would also take a moment to ask the past chairs of the Beacon Council, I think there are quite a number of them here, to please stand. I would also ask the Beacon Council committee chairs that are here to please stand, and the Board of Director members. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
I echo everything that Ernie said, and we're really excited to have all of you here to talk about the accomplishments of this community-wide plan. I'd like to stress this is indeed a community-wide plan. Beacon may be the secretary and the leader of it, so to speak, but this is all your plan. A plan to grow our local economy, a plan to delve into resilience, to make sure that our economy is second to none and able to withstand any kind of shocks to it. With the Beacon Council leading the initiative, the organizations and people throughout the community have worked diligently to keep the momentum growing so that our local economy is diverse and strong enough to withstand any downturn. Some of those organizations include our event sponsors, including Career Source South Florida, and of course the Knight Foundation, as well as many others. This event could not happen with their support, so we'd like to bring your attention to the screen to see all of our sponsors. And in particular, if we could have a round of applause for the Frost School of Music for the incredible music they played as we were walking in. So we have a busy agenda today. We want to be respectful of your schedules. So at this time, if I could call up our host, UN President Dr. Julio Frank, that would be wonderful. You know, as a double alumnus of the U, I was thrilled to see this was the venue we chose. And it's appropriate, given the U has always been a thought leader in terms of innovation, which you saw in the halls. But also, I know as a strong part of Dr. Frank's strategic plan for the U, innovation is first and foremost. And it's not surprising, given the work you've done as Minister of Health in Mexico and with the Chance School at Harvard. You've always been a thought leader, and we look forward to hearing your remarks as to where the news is going to take us. Thank you. You have the mic.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. Welcome to the University of Miami. We're delighted to be playing the role of host for this annual One Community, One Goal report to the community. I'd like to thank Beacon Council Ernie Diaz and Chair-elect Jared Davis. Jared, we're very proud that you're a double alum, so thank you very much for your kind introduction. And I want to thank my colleague and friend, FIU President Mark Rosenberg, as well as all my colleagues on the Academic Leadership Council. We work together very, very tightly to ensure that institutions of higher learning are a positive force for transformation in all of our region. And I want to thank the leadership of the Beacon Council, including the One Community, One Goal co-chairs Matt Hagman and Nelson Lazo, as well as Larry Williams. And of course, I join my voice in my admiration to our Frost School of Music student performers who are really terrific. I was asked to give a very brief, less than 10-minute overview of what our initiatives at the University of Miami are around the topic of innovation. And I'll walk you through a very brief description. The University of Miami is 9 years away from celebrating its first 100 years. It was founded only 26 years after the city of Miami was established. And as we look at our new century, in my inaugural address earlier this year, I articulated 4 defining aspirations for the university in its new century. And by the way, there are copies of my inaugural speech if anyone wants to go into more detail. I'm just going to mention those 4 aspirations. The first one is to be the excellent university, the pursuit of the higher standards in research, education, and everything we do. At the same time, we want to be the relevant university, connected to the most pressing problems of our community, both the local community and the global community of which we are a part. We also want to be the hemispheric university, taking full advantage of the strategic value of our location in one of the most cosmopolitan cities of the world, and truly the crossroads of the Americas, and from there to the rest of the world. And last but not least, we want to be the exemplary university. serving as a model to the larger society of the values and behaviors that we cherish, like diversity, like tolerance, like the free expression of ideas, which are so crucial to create a climate of innovation. And I'm just going to mention the most relevant aspects of these 4 elements to our innovation strategy. Under the Excellent University, I would like to stress new investments we are doing in science and engineering. At my inauguration, I was delighted to announce a major gift for $100 million from Phil and Patricia Frost to stimulate investment in basic and applied sciences and engineering. But I believe strongly that universities have a duty to translate science into solutions. And that's what makes us truly relevant. And to do that, in the case of innovation, we are launching, and I will be talking more about this in a minute, something called the Hemispheric Innovation and Technology Initiative, and that allows us to leverage the unique value of our location here in Miami. And that is accompanied by an effort now to build a Hemispheric University Consortium with a small number of universities across the entire hemisphere. So let me focus quickly on this, what we call the HIT initiative, Hemispheric Innovation and Technology Initiative. Now, the first question we need to answer is, why are universities interested in technology and innovation? There is a viewpoint that universities' main role is to create knowledge through research, and then there's other social instrumentalities to do the innovation step. I believe strongly that there are 4 reasons why any university has to be deeply involved in innovation. And certainly it's the case of the University of Miami. First and foremost, it's because of our students. Emphasizing innovation improves the educational outcomes in a rapidly changing labor market where automation is rapidly replacing humans in many jobs and new jobs are being created. The competencies of creativity, critical thinking, and flexibility are essential for every graduating student, not only those who are going to follow a career in technological innovation. Second, we owe it to our faculty. Most of our faculty actually would like to see their discoveries translated into solutions, and we need to empower them to do that. Third, comprehensive research universities like the University of Miami need to identify new sources of funding for research to keep the innovation engine moving, because the compact after World War II of mostly federally sponsorship of basic research, it has reached a limit. And we need to find new sources for investing in science. And last but not least, this is a way in which universities contribute to the economic development of our community. And we do that, first of all, because we are good citizens. We are, after all, the University of Miami. We're not just a university in the city, we are of the city. We are the University of Miami. But beyond that, it is also in our own interest to be part of a prosperous community. And here's where the Beacon Council plays such an important role. Now, what are the main elements? There are 2 dimensions in our Hemispheric Innovation and Technology strategy or initiative. First of all, there's an inward-looking component, an inward-looking dimension, and an outward-looking dimension. The inward-looking dimension has mostly to do with the idea of translating knowledge, of making sure that discoveries that are produced in our laboratories and the scholarship that we generate get translated into solutions. This is that link between excellence and relevance. And secondly, there's an outward-looking component, which is mostly to partner with organizations, business organizations, government organizations, civil society, professional associations, to really fully develop the potential of Miami to become a hemispheric innovation hub. I think because of its location, because of its enormous power of being a convener, Miami can play that fundamental role of being a hub of innovation for the Americas. And that has to be done across the entire innovation cycle. And I owe this to Norma Kenyo, who leads our innovation efforts at the University of Miami. The idea of really universities traversing the entire innovation cycle in partnership with many other actors. That innovation cycle starts with basic research. And I want to stress that, and the generation of new ideas. And that's why we're doing major new investments in basic research. We have great strengths, 11 colleges and schools. We're starting to build this university consortium across the hemisphere. We're launching something we call the IDEA Lab. IDEA stands for Intersection Development in Action. The idea of finding those places where disciplines intersect, where they converge around problems. And we're hoping to launch that very soon. As a result of coming from this first element or stage of the cycle, we can then move to a stage of proof of concept, early technology development. And there, the university has a number of instruments like the Launchpad, mostly focused on students. I mentioned the student experience as the first rationale for investing here, and on alums. And this is an initiative that has now multiplied in many parts of the country. We are partnering now with Cambridge Innovation Center, and you'll be hearing from Tim Rowe later on. They are our most recent tenant in our life science and technology building, and we're very excited about the potential for synergies there. And there are a number of incubators and accelerators. When that is done properly, products actually get developed, and then we partner with many members of our community to move into continued product development, to secure funding, to navigate regulatory approvals, eventually for licensing, and that leads us finally to successful product launch and marketing, which, when it's done properly, then generates new revenue for restarting that cycle again at a higher level. This is the comprehensive concept that we are trying to promote at the University of Miami, and we look forward to partnering with many of you. I thank you once again for choosing our university, this great space to host the discussions of this day. I look forward to our continued engagement, and I look forward to very fruitful partnerships with all of you here as we work together to secure the prosperity of our city, our region, and our globe. Thank you very much.
Sharing those perspectives with us and for your leadership. At this time, I'd like to welcome the MCs for today. One Community, One Goal co-chairs Nelson Lasso, CEO of Doctors Hospital, and Matt Hagman, Program Director for the Knight Foundation. Please join me in a round of applause for these gentlemen.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Glad to see everybody here. Great attendance, full house. We're very excited about today. We're very excited about what we call our Kumbaya moment here, to talk about the tremendous accomplishments of One Community, One Goal for this past year. So we're excited to be here, both Matt and I.
We have begun a journey to make the dreams that we have for Miami-Dade County in South Florida, and we have a strategy on how to get there.
Since the beginning of One Community, One Goal, it's no secret that the rock stars of the One Community, One Goal initiative is really the Academic Leaders Council. They are the presidents of the major universities: the University of Miami, Florida International University, Florida Memorial University, St. Thomas University, Barry University, Miami-Dade College, and of course, the superintendent of Miami-Dade Public Schools.
So let's find out what these rock stars are up to. So please roll the video.
Welcome to Florida International University. We serve a diverse student body of more than 56,000 students who reflect the incredible diversity of our Miami. By 2020, we expect 65,000 students. Today, we're the fourth largest university in the country. We are the largest majority minority university in the country. And we award more bachelor's and master's degrees to Hispanic students than any other university in the country. And we're also preparing our students to create good jobs. We think that's very important. Startup FIU, which we recently launched, includes 3 new incubators and an accelerator program. We understand the entrepreneurial thrust of this community. Our Startup FIU will also focus on the commercialization of scientific discoveries and cutting-edge technologies developed by our FIU faculty to leverage the $165 million of research a year and to leverage the incredible STEM talent that we have at our university. Higher education's growth in the years to come is going to depend on our choice never to turn our back on our community. but to listen, to remain engaged, to respond, and to keep the doors open to eligible students. You see, when we grow and support Miami, we're all stronger.
While there are many activities we undertook since last year to support the target industry priorities, we're especially proud of three major accomplishments. First, St. Thomas University responded to the high demand and limited training opportunities within the medical field, especially for nursing. We created not only a bachelor's but also a master's program in nursing, together with an expanded state-of-the-art simulation lab. Second, St. Thomas University has entered into partnerships with prominent businesses to launch a new graduate program in big data analytics, enhancing and supporting these partnerships and helping our students find internships and jobs in up-and-coming industries in the greater Miami community. Third, St. Thomas University has launched new innovative and cutting-edge master's and doctorate degrees in cybersecurity management, supply chain logistics, and information security management. These programs are being offered at St. Thomas University new Downtown Miami Satellite Learning Center, providing access to our new innovative programs, all tied to the priorities of One Community, One Goal.
The University of Miami aspires to be the hemispheric university, the excellent university, the relevant university, and the exemplary university by our centennial in 2025. The following initiatives not only help support these goals, they also create an invaluable synergy that will drive economic development throughout the region. The hemispheric reach of the University of Miami has been established through numerous collaborations spearheaded by our 11 schools and colleges. The Hemispheric Innovation Hub focuses on commercialization of our most promising innovations. We have quadrupled our licensing activity and increased intellectual property revenue over sixfold, and 84% of our startups based on therapeutics, biomedical devices, and healthcare IT have been established since the reorganization of our technology advancement infrastructure. The University of Miami is also committed to providing sustainable solutions for climate change, sea level rise, and other environmental challenges. We are marshaling our collective problem-solving power and engaging researchers, engineers, architects, marine scientists, health experts, and geologists to explore new technologies and new ways to live sustainably. Residents of Miami-Dade County will find the future of integrated healthcare at UHealth Coral Gables in the Lennar Foundation Medical Center. There will be specialists to treat heart conditions, neurological diseases, sports medicine challenges, men's and women's health, and more. Armed with the most effective technology and research, Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center experts will offer cancer patients precise treatments and clinical trials. Patients also will have access to eye experts from Bascom Palmer Eye Institute, the #1 eye hospital in the nation. UHealth Coral Gables will be the blueprint for a new model of integrated healthcare in South Florida.
At Miami-Dade County Public Schools, our business is education, and our most visible products, high school graduates, are being produced at a record high rate of 78.1%, exceeding the state average. Over 21,000 students graduated last year, and 94% of them plan to attend college. One reason for this, digital conversions. 43,000 digital devices distributed to students just this past year, bringing the total number to a staggering 104,000. The devices enhance the learning experience and complement the 11,600 interactive boards in our classrooms, under 45 million square feet of space under Wi-Fi connectivity. Miami-Dade students continue to outperform on national exams like the NAEP and the SAT. And for their 5th year in a row, MDCPS increased advanced placement exam passing rates and enrollment, earning Miami-Dade a spot on the College Board's 6th annual honor roll. Miami-Dade received 37 National Magnet Merit Awards, outperforming all other school systems across the country for the 5th straight year. The district added 55 new magnet and choice programs this year to the already impressive list of highly sought-out programs, bringing the total to a remarkable 500. In every way, truly, we are giving our students the world.
Hello! Berry University now offers 13 online or hybrid degree programs directly tied to the Beacon Council's 7 targeted industries. The latest 2 totally online degrees in the healthcare sector are the Doctor of Occupational Therapy degree and the Doctor of Nursing Practice degree with an anesthesiology specialization. I'm speaking to you from our latest innovative teaching and learning space, the TC4 Classroom, that incorporates technology, critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity, and innovation. This classroom provides an interactive and dynamic learning environment equipped with a Promethean board, a smart cap whiteboard, a clear touch monitor with computer, an in-ceiling document camera, portable easels, audio throughout the room, a Blu-ray player, and 4 collaboration tables. Everything is controlled with an easy-to-use, removable touch panel. We're delighted to provide our students with this TC4 classroom, especially those who are preparing to be future educators.
We have no greater asset in our community than our students. Miami-Dade College's innovative and state-of-the-art programs provide real solutions to address our most pressing local workforce and industry challenges. Miami-Dade College is changing the landscape of animation and game design in Miami with Magic, the Miami Animation and Gaming International Complex, that was built in partnership with Pixar. The innovative curriculum at Magic prepares students for immediate employment at a studio or design house and familiarizes them with the pace and demands of a real-world job. Miami-Dade College recently joined an elite group of schools when it was selected by Amazon for their innovative AWS Educate program that provides an academic gateway for the next generation of IT and cloud professionals, preparing students to thrive in Miami's vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem. Miami-Dade College launched the Idea Center, a groundbreaking hub of innovation where students from all disciplines can gather, collaborate, and take advantage of resources and training to develop their entrepreneurial ideas. Miami-Dade College is ready to weave the next big chapter in Miami with its cutting-edge Miami Fashion Institute, the only facility of its kind at a public higher education institution in Florida, and one of only a handful nationally.
Florida Memorial University is fully focused on developing the talent necessary to support South Florida's growing high-tech and innovation economy. The university is the recipient of a planning grant from the Lilly Endowment, which has sparked a comprehensive university-wide curriculum review. The singular goal of the review is to ensure complete alignment between our curricula and the industry needs. Through this work, we will develop and enhance clear pathways for our students through the university and into high-demand jobs. Our Natural Science Department continues to make great strides in the area of cancer research. Our undergraduate chemistry students work in tandem with faculty to develop and test cancer drug antigens, several of which have demonstrated promising results. FMU researchers will present their recent findings in Barcelona, Spain this spring. Beyond the classroom, FMU is excited about the opening of the new state-of-the-art Arena and Wellness Center on campus. This facility will be the focal point of a university-wide wellness effort, benefiting our staff, faculty, students, alumni, and community constituencies. Additionally, the arena will serve as the home court and primary training facility for FMU sports.
Right, but after.
And here to tell us more about the Academic Leaders Council, please welcome the ALC Chair and the President of Florida International University, Mark Rosenberg. So Mark, we want to talk with you, really, I know for me, I want to hit two things. One, Academic Leaders Council and the work of all of our universities, along with our schools across Miami-Dade County. But in addition, also the work that specifically at FIU's doing, around Startup FIU in particular. So if we could, Nelson and I will throw some questions at you.
Sure.
What prompted this really unprecedented gathering of university and school leaders to come together in the Academic Leaders Council and embrace one community, one goal?
Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, let me say that I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and appreciate the respect and the support that the Beacon Council has given to FIU. I know that you may note that there are a lot of FIU people here today, and in terms of full disclosure, let me let you know that I expect that one of them has already offered a scholarship to Kimberly, who is the singer. Okay, so if that hasn't happened, that needs to happen, because she was outstanding. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. So, as many of you know, institutions of higher education, we're just as competitive as you are. We are institutions that focus perhaps excessively on who we are and what we do. We benchmark against each other. And so when One Community, One Goal did its assessment, and when the Beacon Council placed education as pivotal to how we're going to be competitive, it really left no excuse for us not to begin to cooperate. And so we came together at the behest of the Beacon Council as an Academic Leaders Council, explicitly for the purpose of building the education ecosystem of our community. Now, inside baseball is that in the first One Community, One Goal initiative that was led by Jay Molina, and heroically led by Jay Molina, there was a conversation about why education wasn't given a higher priority role, given where we were going in the 21st century into exponential information, research that was going to lead to innovation, that would lead to job creation. But it was the first One Community, One Goal vision was much more limited in terms of the scale and scope of the impact of education, whether it be K through 12 or whether it be universities. So when this opportunity presented itself, the respective leaders of our major institutions of higher education sat down with the superintendent and decided that we would focus our efforts at the request of the Beacon Council on building capability in the 7 areas of One Community, One Goal, the 7 targeted areas. And building capability, what does that look like? What that looks like is taking the extant curriculum and making sure it's leveraged against those 7 areas. It's developing new curriculum, and we have a thorough inventory for you of what we've retooled and what we've built. But it's all focused on ensuring that we have the talent to enable those 7 sectors to be globally competitive. And so, so often industry, as you know, and the private sector is not happy that we're not preparing the workforce of the 21st century. And so really this gave us an opportunity to have a broader vision about what we were doing, to share as much as we could, and also to begin sector by sector dialogue in these 7 areas to make sure that we were listening to what business leadership in this community wanted in terms of the talent that we were producing.
Nelson.
Very good, Mark. I didn't think you were going to let me ask a question there for a minute, but I want to ask one. Listen, the Academic Leaders Council to me is, I'm very bullish on it. I'm always very excited to attend those meetings. I'm in awe in the room. You guys have done an amazing job. One of the things that has been very successful is the Talent Development Network.
Yes.
And I want you to share with the group how that came about in the progress of the Talent Development Network.
Okay, so you've heard so much about the skills deficit in terms of our workforce on one hand and the brain drain from our community on the other. We understand as educators we have to do better, but we see that as a shared responsibility because industry and business needs are very stylized. And so internships become the vehicle by which companies in this community can train and nurture the talent that they need to stay competitive. The national data are very clear. 65% of students who get internships stay with that company, and at a salary increase of $12,000 to $13,000. So, Talent Development Initiative was created by this community with support from the Helios Foundation to find a way to enable a pool of eligible students as well as companies to identify that talent and bring that talent in.
Boy, I know for me personally, I imagine many in the audience, you'll go through a day and you'll hear an employer say it's so hard to find talent, and the really talented say there are no jobs. And so solving that disconnect is so important.
This is a convergence.
In the time we've gotten, we're counting down quickly. Wanted to ask you about Startup FIU.
Right.
Sort of what prompted you to make this enormous effort where FIU is going to be such a leader in innovation here in Miami, even greater leader in innovation in Miami, and what can we expect going forward?
Well, you heard all the data, but let me tell you what's really relevant in my sense. Yeah, we're interested in growing, but growth is not about size, it's about scale for leverage. And that leverage has enabled us in the last 5 years to hire 500 new faculty. Think of that, 230 replacements and 270 new faculty. Beacon Council works very hard to bring in new companies, to bring 30, 40 new employees, but this university is finding a way to bring knowledge assets into the community. And startup is really, we're a little late to the game, I'll tell you, but startup reflects the reality in Miami that we're number 2 in the country in terms of startups. It's like 7,000 over the last few years, but we haven't done very well at scaling up. So our emphasis is we've asked for applications. We got 160 applications from companies that individuals who want to start up. We've selected 15. We're going very carefully, and it's already started. We're very excited about that.
And for business leaders here in the room wanting to engage, lots of opportunities.
Yeah, it's open to the business, clearly to the business community, but as President Frank mentioned, first and foremost, the future of our community is in our youth, and first and foremost, we know we have to do a better job at preparing our students to create good jobs, not just to take good jobs.
Mark, real quickly, because we're running out of time for the segment, what can the business community, the folks in this room and outside of this room, do to better help prepare the workforce for tomorrow's jobs?
First of all, have higher expectations for our public education system. Have higher expectations, because we will respond and exceed those expectations, but we need higher expectations. That's number 1. Number 2, if you can, please start a paid internship. Why does it have to be paid? Because a lot of students have to work, and if they don't work, they can't go to college. So if it's paid, they can leave that work, they can get into the field they want to get into. It's a win-win situation.
Boy, higher expectations would have been really bad news for me. Wow.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a hand for President Mark Rosen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Thanks, Nelson. Be good.
Thank you.
So, we talk about this really unprecedented collaboration among our universities and schools. It's one thing to talk about collaboration. It's another to see what it looks like. And we have one more video to illustrate that. Please.
How long is that video? How long is that video?
For years, our educational institutions have been competitors. One school challenging another on the field, or in the classroom, and just about every place else. Competition helps us to innovate, to push ourselves to new heights, to make the community a better place. But let's face it, it's fun to win. But as the years have gone on, we've all noticed each of our institutions are facing the same challenges over and over again. How do we get our students real-world experience? How do we educate students about target industry careers? And how do we make sure that students have the skills companies need.
Simply put, we need to prepare and connect our students for the jobs of tomorrow. Imagine companies being able to find qualified talent they need right here in Miami-Dade County. Imagine a workforce that's committed to the community because this is home. Imagine businesses thriving because we have solved the huge problem: people.
Each of us have been working hard on implementing new programs, degrees, and changes in curriculum to give our students the skills they need to be successful. But to solve the people problem, we needed to do something unprecedented.
To truly help our students and this community, something drastic was needed: teamwork. Under one community, one goal, an unprecedented collaboration among educational leaders took place. We formed the Academic Leaders Council of One Community, One Goal.
St. Thomas University,
Miami-Dade County Public Schools,
Florida International University,
Miami-Dade College,
Barry University,
Florida Memorial University.
The University of Miami.
we studied the issues, and together we found solutions. So, how do we get our students real-world experience? Internships, the place where a student can get hands-on experience and mentorship. And companies discover who could be their next employee. Together we created the Talent Development Network, or TDN for short, an online portal that connects businesses and students for paid internships.
Several hundred students and companies have participated in this innovative program, which is creating a future talent pool for businesses and helping students gain the skills, experience, and connections they need in order to successfully enter the workforce with higher paying jobs.
Question number 2. How do we educate students about the careers available to them in Miami's leading industries? Through One Community, One Goal, the Academic Leaders Council is developing a career portal. It will describe the jobs available in our leading industries, provide salary ranges, and a roadmap on how to get each of those jobs. The career portal will provide a guide for students as well as for parents, school counselors, and really anyone who's seeking a career change.
Our third challenge: how do we make sure that students have the skills companies need? Through One Community, One Goal, we have been meeting with business and industry leaders. We are aligning our educational courses with their needs. This will ensure we are providing a qualified workforce for the jobs of today and the future.
As a result of these meetings, new degrees are blossoming on our campuses. And while students are better prepared, the real success story here is our businesses.
Now, with the right talent, they are thriving and growing. Our efforts are also aiding the Beacon Council in their efforts to attract new businesses and grow existing companies in Miami-Dade.
And now that you've heard how we're collaborating on developing talent for our community, we do need your help. We have created an amazing resource for your business. Go to tdnmiami.com. Post a paid internship for your organization. Get engaged with One Community, One Goal. We welcome your input. We welcome your support.
You have an opportunity to be part of the solution.
You have an opportunity to be part of the solution.
You have an opportunity to be part of the solution.
You have an opportunity to be part of the solution.
You have an opportunity to be part of the solution.
You have an opportunity to be part of the solution.
You have an opportunity to be part of the solution.
Amazing. I have to follow that. But Mark and I, Matt and I mean, we've been the co-chairs of One Community, One Goal for the past 2 years. But we have not been alone. Our mayor has been part of being a co-chair for One Community, One Goal. We're very pleased, all the work that he's done, all the collaboration that he's given us, the support, being there when we needed him. And now it's my privilege and honor to introduce the mayor of Miami-Dade County, Carlos A. Jimenez. Give him a hand.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here as we continue to work together to make Miami-Dade County the place to live, work, and to play. As many of you know, I've been with the Community One Goal, One Community, One Goal since the beginning, since 2012, as a co-chair, and I knew I wanted to be part of this crucial community-wide initiative because I know that Miami-Dade is a world-class community. And we just get better each and every day. Like all Miamians, I know Miami-Dade is poised to be one of the great global communities of the world. We are what the rest of the world and the United States and major metropolitan areas outside our country will look and feel like in the next decade. We are on the cutting edge, and we're continuing to push that envelope. I'm more committed than ever to working with you to make a better Miami-Dade for our children and our grandchildren, and specifically our grandchildren. I'm a grandfather of 6, and once you have grandchildren, you kind of forget about your children. But they're nice people, but actually they're just a means to an end, which is grandchildren. And so my duty as mayor and our duty as a generation is actually to create a better Miami for our children and our grandchildren. So this morning, I'm excited to talk to you about some of our recent accomplishments and what your county government is doing in partnership with all of you here today to make Miami-Dade County even a better place to live, work, and to play. That's what One Community, One Goal is all about. We're working together to build an even better Miami-Dade, Miami-Dade with high-paying jobs and investments, and those investments and jobs that will benefit all Miamians. That's an important point. We must make Miami-Dade County the place to live, to work, and to play for every single Miami-Dade County resident. And now that we have 2.7 million residents here in our county, making us the most populous county and the 3rd most populous state in the nation, that's why last week when I laid out my proposed budget for fiscal year 2016 and 17, we included funding for programs and initiatives that we hope will continue to attract new investments in our county. For example, the proposed budget provides more than $200 million to support existing and new applications for affordable housing projects. And as you may have heard, the Board of County Commissioners voted to move forward with a redevelopment of Miami-Dade's oldest public housing community, Liberty Square. Liberty Square was built during the time of FDR. For those of you who don't know who FDR was, he was the President of the United States before World War II. That's how old that development was. So we're moving forward with Liberty Square and Lincoln Gardens in Brownsville. They're both in the city of Miami, and our proposed budget includes allocation of $46 million in county funding for that long overdue redevelopment. The Employ Miami-Dade initiative, which was launched as part of One Community, One Goal, has also been included in the Liberty Square Lincoln Gardens redevelopment so that graduates of the program can be hired on the job site. Those of you that don't know, Employ Miami-Dade has already led to 471 residents who live in the neighborhoods with high unemployment rates being trained, and many have been placed in jobs. And what a better way to build Liberty Square than to have the residents that actually live there be part of building it. The proposed budget fully funds the continuation of Employ Miami-Dade, along with $1 million to continue our summer youth employment program so that our community's young residents can get valuable on-the-job experience. We're also proposing the addition of 18 positions in small business development, which we anticipate which will allow the number of certified small and disadvantaged businesses in Miami-Dade to grow by about 100. And we continue to make significant investments in our parks, in our libraries, our cultural and educational programs, because those are a crucial part of making Miami-Dade County a world-class community for all Miamians. In addition to those priorities, we've accomplished a heck of a lot. through One Community, One Goal. As I mentioned at last week's Beacon Council Board of Directors meeting, we can be proud that we've already surpassed our 5-year goal of creating 27,000 jobs in targeted industries. In fact, we've increased jobs in targeted industries and by nearly 45,000. So that's about 66% more than the goal that we established. So I think that deserves a round of applause. And that's what good community partnerships can accomplish. And we're working on even more. We can be proud that we collectively have created more than 150,000 private sector jobs in our community over the last 5 years. And I want to be crystal clear about something, because a lot of politicians take credit for that. I won't, all right? We did it together. It's the private sector that creates the jobs. It's the government that creates the environment for the creation of those jobs. We are the #1 job-creating county in the state of Florida, and the state of Florida is either #1 or #2 job-creating state in the entire nation. The Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce, Knight Foundation, many others have been great partners with us here. The Beacon Council, obviously, and the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, led by Bill Tarbin and his great team, are fantastic, and we're all working together to make Miami-Dade County a much better place to live, work, and play, and also create increased job opportunities for all of our residents. Our unemployment rate has also gone down from around 12% 5 years ago to about 5.5% today. And that's also, we've done a very good job, all of us collectively, of creating jobs in Miami-Dade County. And when others question or politicize the work that we do together, it hurts our community because it sends the wrong message to the private sector and the entire community, and we are not going to let that happen. I could go on and on about all the, the good things that we've done together, but I'm sure you don't want to hear me talk for 4 or 5 hours. So I'm going to focus on what we've done and what we're doing in terms of entrepreneurship and innovation. And I'll be touching on what we're doing to enhance Miami-Dade's physical infrastructure and business climate and policy during my panel discussion later with Larry, Matt, and Nelson. I know that our tech and innovation ecosystems is a special focus of today's event, and I can see why. We've accomplished quite a bit in a very short time in terms of diversifying our economy by growing our tech and innovation ecosystem. Entrepreneurship and innovation accomplishments include, we've had a 34% job tech growth in Miami-Dade since 2012. And it's not surprising that the White House recently designated Miami-Dade County as one of only 2 tech hire communities in the state of Florida, because we are definitely leading the charge to make Miami-Dade the tech hub that we all know it can be. We've had foresight to provide $1 million in seed money to Emerge Americas some years ago. Manny Medina and his team have been doing amazing work with Emerge Americas. They had 6,000 attendees the first year. They had 10,000 attendees the second year. And last year, they had 14,000 attendees. So that you could say that our tech hub, our tech hub is growing by the year, and we're continuing to solidify our position as Tech Beach, not Silicon Valley. We're going to be Tech Beach, okay? And we're already #2 in the nation, as you heard, in terms of startups. Not everyone knows this, and I guess they did because the president stole my thunder, but Miami-Dade County was one of the first governments to invest in startups. Around the same time we invested in Emerge, we provided close to $1 million in seed money to help Venture Hive get off the ground. And I'm glad that we made that investment, because since its founding in 2012, Susan Ahmad and her team at Venture Hive have helped create more than 30 tech companies from all over the globe flourish in our world-class community. 2 years ago, Microsoft opened the first Microsoft Innovation Center in the United States at Venture Hive. The MIC brings together innovators along with students and others to accelerate technological advances, creating the tech jobs of tomorrow. And I think that the proof that Miami-Dade is quickly becoming a hub for innovation is also in the tech companies that want to be in our community. Technocom USA, a Spanish IT services company, and Westnascher and Partner Consulting, a German-based business and IT solutions company, are setting up their shop right here. And Top Solutions, which develops, remanufactures, distributes, and repairs Consumer Electronics is moving its facility from Doral to West Kendall area. Those three companies will bring more than $4 million in new capital investment and 300 new jobs to Miami-Dade County in the next 3 years. And businesses want to be in Miami-Dade County because doing business here is now easier and friendlier than ever. And I'll be talking about that in more detail later on this morning. As I've said to all of you before, and I will say it to you again in future speeches and conversations, we must take a holistic approach to continuing to make Miami-Dade County a world-class community. The county government I lead has nearly 27,000 employees and a $7.1 billion proposed budget for next fiscal year. And while we will continue to invest in modernizing our infrastructure, in entrepreneurship and innovation, and in ways to streamline and improve services for our residents and businesses, we will not be proposing a tax rate increase to support government operations. That's because I know that in order to foster economic growth, we must continue to provide a stable taxing environment, one that makes our job creators comfortable and reinforces our message to the world that Miami-Dade is the place to live, work, and play. You know, but government can't do it all alone, and that's where all of you come in. If we want to make a better place, a better Miami-Dade for all Miamians, present and future, we must continue to work together. My friends, we have made progress in every area of our One Community, One Goal strategic plan, and that's because of all of your hard work and commitment and dedication. Thank you for all that you do. Larry, I especially want to thank you and your team at the Beacon Council for being Miami-Dade's official economic development partners. You have brought new job-generating investments to our community, and you help existing businesses grow. And we appreciate all that you do. Now let's take it to the next level. Let's work even harder to make Miami-Dade County the place where everyone across the globe wants to live, work, and to play. Thank all of you for coming today. May God bless you. May God continue to bless Miami-Dade County.
Good job. Good job. Good morning, everybody.
Good job, Mayor.
My name's Larry Williams. I'm the president and CEO of the Beacon Council, and we're delighted to be here today. And we've had the privilege in this second version of One Community, One Goal to really serve as the convener. And the way I describe us is we're the secretariat, because we're the ones that have taken a little bit of leadership, again, in this round of One Community, One Goal, to make sure that people come together and then to be able to celebrate and even advocate for a lot of the work that's getting done. But it's really about all of us. The Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce really did a version of this about a decade ago, and it was time to revive it, and with some great leadership with Alex Viloc, Adolfo Enriquez, and many others, and now the leadership with Matt and with Nelson and you, Mayor, we've been able to continue this, and you've been part of this the whole way. Now, a lot of what we want to do today is talk about what all One Community, One Goal represents. When I'm talking to site selectors around the world, one thing that they point out to me very frequently is they like communities that collaborate, and they like communities that know what their challenges are and how they're going to address them. And that's what One Community, One Goal is about. And so whenever they can see that, every community has challenges, but what are you going to do to address them? And so we've been able to bring together a lot of people, and you're going to see there are a lot of people that are leaning in and engaged in this. So I want to have a great conversation about this. But when we think about the entirety of One Community, One Goal, you know, it is about the physical infrastructure. It is about entrepreneurship and innovation. Mm-hmm. It's about education and workforce that we've talked a lot about this morning. It's about the business climate and the policies that affect them. It's the leadership. It's how we market this area and how we talk about it, and then those targeted industries so we can focus in on our strengths. So this conversation is going to be about digging into some of those, seeing some of our results, but also where we're going. Okay? Ready?
Terrific.
All right.
Is this a quiz or
Yeah.
is this,
Yes, there is a test.
Okay.
This is a test.
Okay.
And you're getting the first question.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
All right.
And really, I want you, Mayor, you talked a little bit about it, but a little bit deeper about the physical infrastructure, the things that lay the foundation, the things that enable economic growth, that enable the job creation, and a lot of the things that you've set a priority on. Can you talk about that over the last few years?
Well, I mean, government, look, Miami-Dade County operates the two largest economic engines of Miami-Dade County government in Miami-Dade. we operate the airport and the seaport, and directly or indirectly are responsible for 500,000 jobs in Miami-Dade County. And so obviously I take that responsibility very seriously, and so we must assure that those two leading economic generators are competitive and actually enhance their competitiveness around the world. So the examples that I'll give is, number one, at the port. When we knew that the Panama Canal was expanding and new ships were going to be able to traverse the Panama Canal, we wanted to make sure that we could accept those ships. And so some years ago, we started a large infrastructure project there at the port that enabled that. We completed a $1 billion tunnel. It was controversial at the time, but as the chair of the Transportation Committee, I was one of the people that pushed that tunnel through. I think it's been a tremendous success. It allows port cargo to access the interstate system directly from the port. We pushed through also reconnecting the rail, because if we knew we were going to have more cargo traffic, then we needed not to put it just on trucks, but also we needed to get a more efficient way to get that cargo off and on the port through rail. So that was done. And then finally, we dredged the port to 52 feet. And that allows now the new post-Panamax ships to call Miami. They can call on Miami fully laden, and that's very important. We are the closest port on the eastern seaboard to the Panama Canal. We're only one of 3 ports on the eastern seaboard that will be able to accept post-Panamax ships. And a post-Panamax ship carries 3 times the cargo of the previous ships. And so we installed the infrastructure for that. So we're ready. And what does that mean? It means jobs. It not only just means jobs of the folks that are loading and unloading, this cargo, but also the truck drivers and then the warehouses and distribution centers that we think are going to grow up and pop up around Miami-Dade County. That should provide tens of thousands of new high-paying jobs. The leading economic generator of Miami-Dade County is the airport. 300,000 jobs are directly or indirectly tied to the airport. Miami-Dade County invested $6 billion at the airport and the new north and south terminals. And so when you go to the airport, 90% of our passengers will go through either the north or the south terminal, which is basically a brand new airport. And we continue to add more flights. We continue to add more international flights. We continue to add international cargo. We're number 1 in international cargo in the United States. We're number 1 in international flights. And we're either number 1 or number 2 in international passengers in the United States. And so we continue to invest in our airport and our seaport, but also the infrastructure that we need in order to have good businesses is transportation. That's a key also. Another key is education, but that's not my bailiwick, okay? That's somebody else's, all right? And they've already spoken about that, and how critical education is to supporting good paying jobs. But transportation, we're embarking on a plan to create 6 new transit corridors in Miami-Dade County. As they come, we as a community will have to find a way to get them done. And I'm committed to that, to getting them done, because, again, it's not about us, it's really about our children and our grandchildren. And they deserve a world-class transportation system. We've put it off, long enough. Yes, it's going to cost some money, but we as a community, hopefully with the help of the federal government and the state government, will need to find a way to create those transit corridors. I don't know what the technology is that's going to be implemented in those transit corridors, because we're on the cusp of some unbelievable technological changes here, not just in the field of transportation, but in all kinds of things, medicine, all kinds of things. And so I want to make sure that whatever solution that we choose at the time that it's ready to go is the latest and the best. Because as I've said a lot of times, I don't want to be the last person to buy a flip phone.
That's right.
All right. You want to buy the latest technology, and the world is going to change. So those are some of the things, excuse me, that we as government have to do. One final thing: the infrastructure we have today. We put $41 million in this year's budget to create a new adaptive traffic signalization system. And what does that mean? Is, believe it or not, right now, the traffic signals in Miami-Dade County, which are controlled all by Miami-Dade County, are synchronized. I know you don't believe it, okay? All right? I know you don't believe it, all right?
No.
They are actually synchronized, but they're only synchronized for my activity. So I get green lights all the time.
Amen.
So I have a clicker that turns it green and everything, and so, but in all seriousness, they're not adaptive. What it means is that it takes historical data, and then the signals are set for a certain time for green and red based on what normally happens. But what normally happens doesn't normally happen. Every day it's a different day. So we're going to be investing $41 million this year and about $160 million in the next 4 years to change to a smart, adaptive traffic signalization system that actually adapts to the condition at that intersection and the entire corridor at the same time, so that we will get the most out of our streets, the most out of our traffic signals to make your commute better, which is critical to economic development.
It is.
Okay?
And actually, no, you could talk more about what you're doing, but it's a great segue. It really is about entrepreneurship, innovation, how we're adopting this, becoming smart cities. I know that's one of your themes as well. Matt, in your work at the Knight Foundation, one of the sponsors of One Community, One Goal, how did the feedback from the community and the emphasis, as this became one of the pillars, one of the pieces of the puzzle, how did that inform your thinking and about how you planned your work?
Yeah, it was about 4 years ago where we at Knight Foundation had the opportunity to think what we could do in Miami in addition to the work we do in arts and journalism. And in thinking about that in spring of 2012, it was just about the same time when the One Community, One Goal report was issued. And in fact, Knight Foundation had done a grant to support the report being done. And in looking through it, one of the findings was that there was this enormous opportunity related to entrepreneurship and innovation. That Miami is a community, as has been mentioned several times, that is highly entrepreneurial. As the mayor mentioned, I mean, in the study that's done by Kauffman Foundation, every year, each of the last 5 years, Miami's been top 5 in terms of entrepreneurial activity, in terms of business formation. So the psychology of launching, starting, risking, all of that, completely in the Miami DNA. That's really who we are in Miami. But where we've struggled for a long time, right, historically, is scaling ventures. Creating that environment where people who have big ideas have the resources and the wherewithal and the people to grow them in a big, big way. And the One Community, One Goal report cited both the opportunity, the real asset we had, but also that challenge that we faced. Right? Furthermore, in addition, what the report found was that, I think to the surprise of many of us, that Miami is actually 7th per capita number of college students in a metropolitan area. Right? I think many of us don't think of ourselves in Miami as such a center of higher education. Yet there it is, right? Have created this enormous network, this enormous educational ecosystem. And yet, they also found in that report, the One Community, One Goal report, also found that this amazing educational ecosystem was educating workers for other communities. That we had a real problem of people getting their education here and actually going elsewhere. What we all talk about is the so-called brain drain. So in thinking about that for us at Knight Foundation, the thinking was, what about if we were to use foundation resources to try and be helpful in creating an entrepreneurial ecosystem that supported entrepreneurs scale big ideas? And if that we could do that well, that would lead to really important community benefits, greater talent retention and attraction, hopefully, greater sense of possibility, foster a greater community of problem solvers. So over the last 3+ years, we've made some 200 grants of different shapes and sizes, invested over $20 million, committed over $20 million. These are still stuff spinning out going forward. In the name of not actually using foundation dollars to invest in entrepreneurs themselves, if that makes sense, but instead to try and help create the resources, the places, the mentor and funder networks, the events and convenings, the learning opportunities, all of those things that go into trying to help create an innovation ecosystem. That whole sort of thought really crystallized sitting as we were on this moment of of thinking about what new that we could do at the foundation, and that came through actually looking through the One Community, One Goal report. So the whole thought of this as an area of focus that to drive not just economic development, which is so important, but sort of community-wide benefit, really started with the One Community, One Goal report.
That's great. This really demonstrates how leadership comes in lots of fashion. Sometimes you're at the forefront, sometimes people identify a need and they jump in and they do something to help progress, solve a problem, progress a need. Nelson, one thing that I know that you've always been very passionate about is that connection of business with talent. We've talked a lot about education, but how does that really inform your thinking and how you think about the workforce of the future and solving even your business needs?
Well, listen, just like Matt, 3 or 4 years ago, I started thinking about my involvement with One Community, One Goal, and the benefits. You're selfish to a certain extent because you're thinking about how is it going to impact your business and the things that you do. And being the CEO of Doctors Hospital and working for Baptist Health South Florida, 16,000 employees, and a lot of these positions are very hard to fill and very hard to recruit. So, we felt that getting involved with the Beacon Council and One Community, One Goal, and helping drive the educational component to get the talent pool to stay here in town, nursing, physicians, and I look at FIU with their medical school along with the University of Miami. These are positions that are very difficult for us to recruit. Nursing, as you know, every 3 or 4 years is cyclical. We're now in a downturn. It's very, very difficult right now to recruit nursing, especially in specialized areas like ICU and surgical nurses and ED nurses. So those things drove my thinking in terms of my involvement with One Community, One Goal, and trying to work with academic leaders to establish the programs that we can keep people here. Not only keep people here, having people want to come here and stay here. And we're seeing tremendous things from our universities. We're seeing the career portals right here at the University of Miami. That's a tremendous initiative, and we're very proud to be involved in that and being a partner with that. I'd be remiss if I didn't call out my alma mater and Sister Linda Berry University with our hybrid degree programs in some of our targeted industries, but again, a lot of stuff going on in healthcare within that realm as well. And of course, FIU leading the charge with the Academic Leaders Council and the Talent Development Network that has been instrumental. And to call on some of our other partners, for example, the United Way has partnered with us and along with the Urban League to bring entrepreneurs in to talk to our high school students, because that's the essence of where these folks start to think about what they want to be when they grow up. And we give them the opportunity to talk to business leaders in this community and start thinking about what they want to do. 35 years ago, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I had no one helping me. But we have a lot of resources out there to help us do that. We're selfish. I want more medical folks, more physicians, more nurses, more respiratory therapists, and not only that, the more people that move into this town, the more they need my services, and the more that they're going to come to my facilities. So it is a win-win, and really for me, when I sat down with the folks with One Community, One Goal, the Beacon Council, Alex and I talked a lot about it. I said, what is not right about this? There's got to be a catch. There isn't a catch. The catch is that we're going to develop a tremendous economical and business ecosystem here in South Florida, and that was my driving force.
Larry, if I could, and so much at One Community, One Goal, and I think the thought with it isn't that it's sort of that it's top down, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly right.
Instead, that what it's about is sort of agenda setting or highlighting, and thinking that solutions can come from places that we don't expect. I mean, for example, talking about infrastructure, all the things the mayor mentioned. Who would have ever thought that in addition we would see the first, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, the first privately funded passenger railway in about a century.
Right.
We're now going to be seeing it will begin running next summer, right?
Yep.
Is that a direct result of One Community, One Goal? No. But is One Community, One Goal helpful in driving that conversation and thinking about infrastructure and our infrastructure needs Absolutely. Furthermore, in thinking about sort of the regulatory environment that we're in, and the mayor has been the leader on this.
That's a great segue.
And thinking about sort of how it is that we can create an environment that really embraces innovation and removing the rules that hinder that. And of course, the great one that the mayor led us on was removing all of these regulations.
That's a great segue, actually, Matt. We're going to pull
Do you
that
wanna-
up right now.
I'll leave it to the mayor to give the punchline in terms of what we're talking about.
One thing I do want to talk about is, as you see, they're supporting organizations here. These aren't sponsors. Well, they might be sponsors, but that's not why they're here. It is to demonstrate how many other organizations are leaning in to make these things happen, taking opportunities to lead in many different fashions. And so with that, a great segue, thank you. We wanted to talk to you, Mayor, and get you to talk to us about that regulatory environment, how you've been improving the business climate here so that we can have that great job growth.
Well, I got to go back to, I think 2008 or 2004. I was running for county commissioner, and I told the story where this. I was actually a county commissioner. I was running again, and there was a groundbreaking for a new pharmacy in South Miami, and the owner had really long hair. Which is not unusual, but I'm okay. He got really long hair, so okay, we did the groundbreaking and the whole thing. And then I noticed that as soon as we ended with the groundbreaking, he sat in a chair, and somebody came and cut his hair. Okay, what was that all about? And he said, well, that some time ago he had, and this was during the height of the recession, that some time before the building had been done, had been completed. He has a partner. And he and his partner sat down, and he said, well, I guess, we just got to get the permits, and we'll be up and running in about, a month or two, and then we'll be up and running. And his partner started laughing. And he said, nah, it's not going to be 2 months. And he goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'll bet you, I won't cut my hair until we get the permit.
Oh, boy.
So I asked him, I said, well, you had pretty long hair, so how long was that? And he goes, well, it was about a year.
Wow.
And so it's, yeah, it's funny, but it's not funny. Because then the next question was, how many people are you employing here? And he said 30. So I said, so you mean to tell me that you were ready to employ 30 people and that the government held you up for a year to get your permit? And he said, yeah.
That's money.
Okay, and that's money. But it's also 30 families that didn't have a job, all right, or couldn't get that good paying job, all right, because we government, and it was in a city, but I'm sure the county had something to do with it too, had delayed that process. And so one of the first things I did as mayor is that I combined all these regulatory agencies under one person. Because I also found that a lot of these regulatory agencies didn't talk to each other. And they actually conflicted with each other. And so we put it under one person, Jack Osterholt. And I told Jack, you need to destroy the barriers, and you need to make sure that we get businesses. We have to do our job in regulation. Excuse me. We have to protect the public's interests and public welfare and safety. Fine. But it doesn't have to take us a year to do that. And so we need to break those barriers so that when you make an application, we get you through as quickly as possible. On the building side, we're working on a system to, my end goal is that right now, if you're trying to build something in Miami-Dade, you may have to, I don't think you have to anymore, but in certain areas you have to come with plans and the whole thing. And there's a cottage industry called runners that actually, you pay them to run your permits through, although they're not running anywhere, they're kind of walking their permits through, all right? But it takes that long. And so what I said, Jack, we need to do something where it's all automated, where basically you press a button, everything's on CAD anyway, it's computer-aided design. You press the button, it goes through the appropriate permitting agencies, all the comments are done, and it's sent back electronically so that we can really speed up the process. Why? Because those are building projects that can put people to work and get our economy moving. And so we've made a lot of strides in that, and I'm very proud of what we've done. And then people now come up to me and say, you're no longer the worst. okay, which is good, okay?
It's progress.
Yeah, I go to city so-and-so, man, they're really bad, okay? And so I said, but my goal is actually to make it so that, you know, all the residents of Miami-Dade County, whether you live in a city or not, they're our customers. They're Miami-Dade County customers. And so why do we need 47 different building permits and applications? We should have one, all right? It's the same building code. Have one application, go to the appropriate agency, make it, and forget about the boundaries, and then have one system where everybody can join in. And so that's what we need to do.
Yeah. So, if,
to get 34 different municipalities, oh, wait a minute, this is my thing, and, you know, hey, and, you know, no, let's just get, you know, these are our residents. These are our customers, all right? You know, forget about, you know, where they live. We have one code. I'm not saying that we're going to do the inspections and all that. You do the inspections, you get the money, et cetera, but let's make it easy for our residents to, A, build what they need to build, and B, get into business as quickly as they can, because that means jobs. And jobs is key. And you're going to hear that from me over and over again. Jobs is key. Jobs is the way out of poverty. Jobs is the way to make your life better. Jobs is the way to, you know, grow the middle class. Jobs is the way to affect future generations. It's not just about the job that you have. It's also how does that affect future generations. And if you live in poverty all the time, it's very hard to get out of it. We need to lift that up. And so that's why I'm very focused on creating jobs, eliminating as many of the barriers as possible to the creation of jobs in Miami-Dade County, and all kinds of jobs. And so regulations was one of those barriers. And that story about the guy with the hair, you know, that changed my entire perspective on what we needed to do. Because that was 2011, I remember now, it was 2011 at the height of the recession. And those 30 people were waiting for those jobs for a year.
That's good.
very important.
We want to talk a little bit about leadership, because all this takes leadership. And we talked a little bit about how it comes in many forms. Nelson, how do you think about the organizational and the leadership that it takes to move an initiative like this along?
Well, listen, you know, One Community, One Goal is a strategic initiative that's really a community initiative, you know, based on the support of the private and public enterprises in this town. And we've had tremendous support from all facets of this community. You know, Matt and the mayor can't do this by ourselves. And the proof is in the pudding. Look at this room full of community leaders and business leaders. So our support has been amazing. You know, another example, and we've talked about it a lot today, is the support of our academic institutions. That is amazing leadership. I don't think that there's any other community in this country that has that type of support for an initiative like this. Maybe there is. I haven't found it. I have not found it. So that's leadership. The other leadership is the coordinating council of business folks that meet with Matt and myself. Sometimes the mayor can make it, sometimes he can't, but meets with us. We're the coordinators, we're the chairs of One Community, One Goal. And these business leaders take out of their time to spend an enormous amount of time with us, talking about strategic direction, talking about the things that we need to be doing in the future with One Community, One Goal, providing us support, providing us with ideas, and telling us you're going in the right direction or you're not going in the right direction. That is leadership. And we have folks knocking on our door to be part of this. So I think we have tremendous leadership. This initiative is not an initiative that came up 5 years ago from some consultant. We looked at it, it looked great. Oh my God, this is amazing, and we put it on our shelf and it died. That has not happened with this. And the reason that has not happened is because of the tremendous support of the business community and the business community getting it. And folks, even before us, that took this bull by the horn and ran with it and believed in it. So I hope that answers your question.
It most certainly does. And it does take that. And I've always said phenomenal. 5,000 people gave input into One Community, One Goal. But what's phenomenal is it didn't sit on the shelf. It's living. It's got traction, and we continue. And I know, Matt, you're itching because you're a journalist. You're used to asking the questions, but today you're content. But, you know, part of that is you know how to tell the story. And if you think about the marketing and the way that we're positioning Miami today, you tell a certain part of the story, but you also see a lot of things that are going on and how we're positioning and marketing Miami-Dade today. And what do you think about how we're addressing that?
Well, I mean, I think two thoughts. One is that, this is, to build on what Nelson was saying, this is open source, right? The whole idea is we're creating a platform, and then people can sort of take that in places that are important to them, right? That are helpful to our community, right? And then number two, as we think, is hopefully people sort of take ownership of this and take it and where it is most important to them. I hope, and this is what I was so itching to share earlier, I hope that continues to encourage us to be a place that embraces innovation and wants to be one of those first places to embrace innovation. I mean, my favorite regulatory change that you spearheaded and led was, of course, all the rules governing Uber and Lyft. So now that, all the gray area for rideshare, that's got
Bravo.
a popular
Bill Talbot,
one.
convention as visitor, led the charge.
And it goes right to the whole idea. I mean, number one, it helps us get around, which is so important.
That's right.
But number two, to the idea that we want to be a community that it doesn't push back against new ideas in terms of how we do things, how we get around, but we want to embrace those things. And hopefully again and again and again, that we, as we move forward with all the changes that you alluded to, Mayor, and how technology changes how we get around, how we live our lives, that we as a community will embrace that and not be pushing back as these new things come into our lives.
Well, keep going on that. Let's talk about the targeted industries and how they've affected it and how they've helped generate job growth. Why don't you go first, Matt, and then we'll go to Nelson.
I think it goes back to being an agenda setter, right? I mean, with One Community, One Goal, not only did it talk about opportunities like entrepreneurship and innovation, not only did it highlight the fact that we've got this amazing educational ecosystem, but it actually said, okay, we're going to pick 7 areas to focus on, right? In terms of whether it's innovation and entrepreneurship, or whether it's the creative industries. And now as we see something, for example, we heard Dr. Padron earlier talking about how there's going to be a whole focus around fashion, right? Terrific. Is one a direct result of the other? Probably not. But is it part of creating this focus and this culture that in thinking about areas where we have a competitive advantage and focus on, One Community, One Goal has been very helpful.
Nelson?
Hey, listen, there's been tremendous work being done by the committees for the 7 targeted industries, and I can go on and on in terms of some of the initiatives, but the aviation committee working on the aerospace show, and that continues to be in the forefront and a big initiative for us. The banking industry working on a best practice type of model for banking. Creative design, partnering with Miami-Dade College for their creative design program. Also, you're looking at the pharma hub situations that's taking place at Miami International Airport, and that's just one of 2 pharma hubs in the whole world. Also, the healthcare committee working with the Health Council of South Florida in conjunction with some of the things that came forward with the Affordable Care Act, to looking at community needs and helping hospitals and other facilities engage in that initiative from the Affordable Care Act. So all the committees are very hard at work. Not everything sticks. Not ideas come up and they don't stick. But believe me, we're talking about it. There's a lot of great things coming about from these committees, and there's a lot of engagement. So Larry, that's just some of the things. I can go on with a million initiatives.
That's great. Well, Mayor, got a lot of traction. We're moving. Where are we going? What's next? One Community, One Goal. Jobs.
I guess the message that I want to say is that we got to keep our eyes forward and to the future, and not be risk adverse. Most politicians are risk adverse, okay, because that's just the nature of the game. But I'm not. I want to make sure that Miami-Dade County is on the cutting edge of everything. That we're the leaders in everything. I want to make this the best community. I want to live in the best place. I want to make Miami-Dade County government itself the best, that people come from around the world and say, hey, wow, look what's going on there. And so I'm always looking ahead. I hate status quo, and so I'm always constantly looking to make changes and to bring things to Miami-Dade that are cutting edge. Good example of that would be autonomous vehicles. You know, we're going to be looking at putting some autonomous trolleys, you know, probably at FIU, but also in the streets of Miami-Dade. These vehicles are printed. That
3D printer
makes them, and then all of a sudden they're driving around without a person. And
Amazing.
And so what will that do? That will revolutionize again transportation. So I want to be on the cutting edge of that. I don't want to be the ones that always follow. And yeah, there's some risk involved in that. And so last week I met with a guy named Bebop. Bebop is Hyperloop. Okay. And so what's Hyperloop? Just Google Hyperloop. I think it'll really be interesting for you. Okay. Zipping around at 750 miles an hour. What applications may that have in Miami-Dade County? All right. What risk does that pose to our airport? So not only is it an opportunity, but what risk actually does it pose to an airport? And if you can see that further down the line, if that technology actually takes off, what will it do to airlines? Which now, you know, we employ 300,000 people in our airport. And so you have to embrace it, but you also have to understand that there are opportunities and there are threats, and then how to mitigate the threats and how to take advantage of the opportunity. But my message is always look forward, look ahead. It's about our children, it's about our grandchildren, and how to make Miami-Dade County better. And as the mayor, you know, this government, or actually this county, you know, all these things are intertwined, you know. We have to have a safe environment, so we have to have a great police department and fire department, and then we also have to have, and if we didn't have, you know, good water and sewer capabilities, we wouldn't have a city. We wouldn't be here. So I got to, you know, that's very important. So there's basic stuff that we have to maintain and also make sure we're doing that really well. But then once we do that, then it allows us to kind of look toward the future to other things, is how do we advance this community forward. And so that's what we're always doing, and that's what I'll continue.
And that's really great insight. And I think, you know, some people have different perception of what power is. To me, power is in creation. And I think whenever we think about Miami, somebody told me the other day that we're building the next Manhattan now. I think what we're doing is far more important. We're building Miami.
Right.
And if we look out here, we've got a team of folks that have come, it's all of you, that's coming together that I think are willing to build, to create, to innovate, to build this great place. So you got a team here.
Yeah.
And it's one community, one goal. We're on the stage, but it's about everybody in this room and how we motivate and build this great place we call Miami. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you, Matt, and thank you, Mayor, for tremendous insight with our panel. Who can't be excited about the things that are happening with One Community, One Goal, and the things that are happening in this community? I know that I am, and nobody has to force me to do this. I do this because I'm passionate about it, and you can see by this panel and the interaction that the tremendous things that are happening. But anyway, moving forward, I want to take this opportunity to introduce our next speaker. This gentleman has become a tremendous partner for One Community, One Goal, and is a tremendous ambassador for this initiative. Please help me welcome Rick Beasley, the Executive Director of CareSource South Florida. I'm glad to see you here. Excellent. Thank you.
All right, good morning. No, let's try to do good morning. Good morning. All right, I'm excited about this. You know, we started this process several years ago. I mean, when Alex and others chaired this, we were kind of going through a recession and trying to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to build Miami. Now, most of you all know that I'm not from Miami, but Miami's home for me. And so I'm excited about this roadmap that we've taken, One Community, One Goal. And if you look at it, the mayor and others have talked about how we're going to build not only the infrastructure, but to rid regulation. Now, I represent CareerSource South Florida. We're the South Florida Workforce and Investment Board. Our job is to build talent. And I don't see my chairman here, but we're led by our chairman, Mr. Abdulia Piedra, who is our chair, my vice chair, Mr. Jeff Bridges. Our role here is how we build talent to meet the needs of this community. Now again, what our community faces is that we are trying to enhance the infrastructure. But we also need to understand that there is human capital infrastructure that we must address. We've heard the academic leadership talk about the initiatives that they're pushing forth. And so some of the things that we're doing with Career Source is how we strategically look at aligning our resources, and I hope I'm doing this right, aligning our resources strategically. Now we went through a strategic planning process to identify, and they're not in particular order, but look at how we've aligned our goals to strategic goals of One Community, One Goal. Again, enhancing our ways of working with business, building and enhancing integration with our partners, working with the Beacon Council, working with United Way, working with the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, and others. How we enhance the services in this community, improving services to those who have barriers to employment, veterans, ex-offenders, disadvantaged youth. Those are areas that we want to concentrate our efforts to, but most importantly, that every dollar that we spend, we want to make sure we get a good return on our investment, a good return on our investment. So real quickly, we went from 5.2 unemployment, but we have grown jobs by 1.2 in this community over the last year. So 1.2% in this community over the last year. So I'm very excited about where we are going. But let's take a look at Career Source and how we're becoming accountable, because these are your tax dollars. We want to make sure that every dollar we spend, we get a good return. So I'll share with you, we invested $46 million into this community. We're going to generate $1.3 billion of salaries back into our community by getting people back to work. We've placed 64,000 individuals into jobs. 64,000 Miamians into jobs. Thank you. Very important in how we strategically work with our partners. I will share with you, we are realigning some of the services that we are offering and making sure that we are building talent, because that's what it is. Workforce development is an economic development engine. It is not social services, it's economic development. The difference between the land in China and the land here, there's nothing different. The only factor is human capital and how we address the needs of our employers to build a sustainable workforce in our community. So, some of the strategic goals that we're looking at. Now, there are a number of initiatives that we've launched, but I'm going to focus on a couple of them, and our mayor mentioned one. We worked with Mayor Jimenez to submit the application for that Miami-Dade County is designated as a tech hire community. We're very excited about the piece. Why? Because it talks about accelerating training to meet the needs of employer in a different way that we've offered training before. Now, I haven't shared with this mayor, so I'm going to announce it here. This workforce board invested $250,000 in partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters to launch the first Tech Hire Center. I haven't heard of any Tech Hire Center created in the country. We've launched the first Tech Hire Center here in Miami-Dade County in partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters. If you all have not seen the new headquarters for our Miami-Dade chapter, please swing by on 27th Avenue and I think 7th Street. So stop by. But we're launching that initiative. Why? Because it builds talent. If we can work with the littles, what's so different about it is that not we're only providing the training for the littles, but we're also providing training for their parents and the folks in the community. That becomes important. We're also launching in partnership with NANA and the Miami Overtown CRA to launch an initiative to provide training, boot-style training for those residents in Overtown. So I will share with you, our first launch is going to be 18 students. We have 4 partner agencies of 4 employers who've already committed to hire those individuals. Very excited about that component because we're talking about providing training in areas of IT where the need is growing in our community. Employee Miami-Dade, the mayor mentioned this. In partnership with Mayor Jimenez, we've launched Employee Miami-Dade to focus our attention in those areas of our community that have been left out. And he's mentioned today that he wants every Miamian to participate, to be involved in our community. And so that's where we're going. Now, the mayor mentioned 471. Thank you, Mayor. Dyslexic. 471. But I will share with you, 67% of that 471 are still employed after 6 months of working. 67%. So we're very excited about that. But we started off in construction. Now we're going into every aspect of the targeted industries is one community, one goal. We got culinary, hospitality, finance, IT. Those are the areas that we're going to be concentrating in. Ready to Work is an initiative. We spoke about and talked about the Talent Development Network that's kicked off by FIU. But we also have a population of youth who have not gone to college, who that may not be the direction for them. And so we've launched Ready to Work, an initiative that focuses on 18 to 27-year-olds to get them work experience, to meet the needs of employers so they are not left out of this opportunity that's growing here in Miami-Dade County. Now, this is one I love the most, the National Flight Academy, because it aligns everything in terms of aviation. If you have not been to the National Flight Academy in Pensacola, we've sent over 300 students to the National Flight Academy to focus on STEM, using aviation to help them grow in our community. We're building a pipeline, our talent supply, to grow companies, also to attract companies to our community. And last but not least, take stock in children. We've invested, and I will share with you, our board just approved $1 million in buying 2+2 scholarships for youth in our community to go to college. An opportunity that some students, when they may have an opportunity, yes, clap for that one, $1 million. So we're paying for 2 years of community college, 2 years at a university. Their education is taken care of, but aligning our resources up to one community, one goal. So if you're not excited about what's going on here in Dade County, you might as well go and move back to New York, California, but Miami-Dade County has the roadmap under one community, one goal to build this community so that it is a place to grow. It is a place to have fun, live, and grow a family. I'm not at the age to have grandchildren yet, Mayor, but I hope to be here where my grandchildren will come back and see me. So with that, I thank you all. Very excited about a one community, one goal.
Thank you very much, Rick. Now we'll keep it going. I want to introduce someone who's bringing something that's brand new to Miami. We talk about building an innovation ecosystem. Cambridge Innovation Center has been a leader in driving the Boston tech innovation ecosystem, and now CIC this fall is launching here in Miami. And so it is a great pleasure to introduce the founder and CEO of CIC, Tim Rowe.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay, so I have just 10 minutes. I'm going to go pretty quickly. First of all, I'm thrilled to be invited down here. I think I'm the only speaker from outside Miami, and I have some reflections for you from looking from outside Miami that I want to share. As Matt said, I run Cambridge Innovation Center. We're the world's largest startup community. We have about 1,000 startups in one massive facility, wet laboratories, robotics facilities, electronics labs. Google Android got started in our facility. That's my background. It's an environment next to MIT and Harvard where a lot of startups get going. Dr. Frank, Matt Hagman, and a few others here in Miami asked us if we would consider coming down and being part of the Miami innovation ecosystem, and we have decided to do that. And we are open with a small temporary space. We will open and have our new first kind of real custom design space early fall. We'll have our opening in November. I want to say that you have made progress. It was not a year of permit delays. It was only 2 months of permit delays. So progress. And I loved hearing what you had to say about where things are going. I also want to notice, when I first came down and I took an Uber, the Uber driver asked me to get in the front seat and pretend to be his friend. I think he was talking about the regulatory issues, but it could have been another Miami issue that he, that he had. So there's a few things I want to talk about. Matt and I were fortunate to be together in Europe about a month ago, talking about innovation ecosystems, what makes them work, what's some of the latest thinking about how to make them stronger. And Matt said, I love what you had to say. Could you share it with the Beacon Council? And I said, sure. So that's what I'm going to jump into right now. I'm going to start with jobs, because that's been a theme so far, and it's really where all of this needs to go. This is data that some of you may have seen, some may not. Kauffman Foundation's their data has been evoked about Miami already today a couple of times. This is their data on job creation nationally. And this is not a survey. This is the entire country for about 30 years, and it shows where the jobs are coming from. See if I get the right button for the laser, yeah. The blue here is jobs created by startups in the United States over the last 30 years. It's about 3 million jobs every year on net. That means, and they define startups as any company that's 5 years old or younger. So if a startup creates 10 jobs and then fires 5 people in those 5 years, that's only 5 jobs, it's net. The black is jobs created or destroyed by all other companies in the United States. And there are some phenomenal insights in this data if you haven't seen this before. First of all, existing companies are very cyclic. You get a down market, you got trouble. You got people on the street, you got people without jobs, you've got crime increasing, you've got all of the challenges that we have in modern urban cities. And of course, there are some good times, but the other piece is, on average, existing companies, if you average that out, it's about 1 million jobs a year that are lost from existing companies. What's happening is that our economies, our existing economies, are slowly shrinking all the time. And this is not a cyclic issue. This is not something that's new. This has been with us for 30 years. This is just how economies work. The big companies, the Ford Motor companies may not be it anymore, and they slowly shrink. So we rely on our new companies to make up for that. And if you average this together, what you see is you've got about plus 3 million from startups, minus 1 million from existing. You've got plus 2 million. Divide by 12, and that's about the 180,000 jobs that you hear each month that the economy has created in a normal economy. So this ties with what you hear when you hear the monthly jobs report coming out of DC. But what they don't tell you is that that's really got 2 pieces. It's plus 270,000 startup jobs on average for 30 years, and minus 90,000 existing corporate jobs. So if we believe this data, and Kaufman does, and this is out of US Census Bureau data, it's pretty basic data, that tells us that if we are a city, if we build cities that know how to build startups, we're going to be healthy and do well, and we'll be able to create for our grandchildren what we want to create for our grandchildren. And if we do this poorly, we're screwed. We are. If we don't figure out the startup piece, then our cities will die. And we know cities around the world that are dying. There were riots in the streets in Madrid a couple years ago over jobs because young people are coming out of these great universities like the ones you have here, and they don't have opportunities. So the things that you're doing and the things that you're talking about today, this is absolutely critical. You're on the right target, you're doing the right things, you're talking about the right things, and it's really important that you're doing it. It's really exciting to see you do it. And I also want to just say, I'm really impressed with how organized you guys are. The videos telling the story of how your academic leaders have come together and really collaborated like that, I actually haven't seen that in any other city. And I spent a lot of time in different cities around the world understanding what they're doing about innovation. It's what I do. And you guys are more together on this than I've seen anywhere else. So I'm impressed. So a couple thoughts from us, having seen this in a few places around the world. What makes innovation economies work? We have a sort of a simple formula that describes what makes innovation happen. There are 3 ingredients. It's like making bread with water and yeast and flour. You got to have money. You got to, go back. You got to have money, you got to have ideas, and you got to have talent. It's that simple. So the money is investment capital. Good news for Miami, you have a lot of money. Bad news for Miami, that money is not engaged in your innovation economy yet, but that's a solvable problem, okay? Ideas, we've talked about the universities you have here. You have some phenomenal research here. You're a top university town. You've got a lot of ideas here. You also have a tremendous amount of entrepreneurial talent. We heard that. The number of startups. Now, the dirty secret is these are not mostly tech startups. So if you analyze that number by tech startups, you're not there. And that's what people are saying. It's not scaling. Part of the issue is the kinds of startups you're pursuing are more likely to be local businesses and less likely to be the next Uber today, right? So the question is, how do you build the infrastructure to support an innovation economy, more innovation startups? We call that innovation infrastructure. You invested $4 billion or something in the airport, $6 billion, something like that. That's an investment in infrastructure, and that's a critical investment to make the overall economy strong. What you're talking about when you talk about Venture Hive and when you're talking about the FIU Startup Initiative, that's innovation infrastructure. I will pose the question, what percentage of your budget should you spend on innovation infrastructure? And I'm throwing in the port and the airport and the roads and the dynamic traffic control system when I say that. What percentage of that budget should that be? If this is where all your jobs come from, I posit that it probably should be a larger percentage than what it is today. It's a big question, something to think about. Okay, so the key here, by the way, is you got to have these in spades, and you do, and then you have to get them to work together. The working together is like getting the money. There's a lot of money in Miami, getting it to play in the innovation space. So the magic is usually, you're not going to even change these numbers very much either. You're not going to sort of suddenly get a lot more money in Miami. That's not how you do it. What you do, the magic is figuring out how to connect these bits. That's what people like Emerge Americas are doing. That's what people like Endeavor are doing. That's what Venture Hive's doing. That's what you're doing at each of these university initiatives. You can think about it as a task of connecting these pieces. Okay? So there is a secret magic silver bullet for connecting people, for getting people to play better together. It's pretty well understood, but I want to share some data because it's kind of mind-blowing. The magic bullet is proximity. It's getting people to spend time close together and to build relationships with each other. That sounds kind of really soft, but I want to give you some real data, right? So AT&T Bell Labs did a landmark study on this. They looked at the scientists in their research laboratories, and they looked at their propensity to collaborate with each other. And what they found was that the scientists who had their offices on the same corridor of the same floor collaborated 10% of that time. That means that they actually created a research project, they signed off, they got funding, they went off after something. If they were opposite corridors on the same floor, they collaborated 2% of the time. And if they were on different floors in the same building, they collaborated only 0.3% of the time. What this is saying is proximity was worth 30-fold increase in collaboration. So when you think about the monies, ideas, and talent, what you're really trying to do is, how do I get these people together? Getting them together, spending time together, causes them to start to trust each other. That's the basis for starting to take risks together and do things together. So it's trust building. That's the name of the game. And you can do it through proximity. So I don't want to bore you with data too much, but I'll just give you one other study that shows that it's not just quantity of collaboration, it's quality. There was a research study done at the Longwood Medical Area in Boston that looked at scientific papers in the life sciences. And they looked at the first and the last author of those papers. And the first author is typically the one who did the work, and the last author typically got the funding for the research and was kind of the sponsor for it. And what they did is they said, how many citations on average do papers get when people are near each other, that's here, versus when they're far from each other? And they found the citations is a proxy for quality. What they found is that you've got about 30% higher quality of the work when you're together. So you're really trying to build these intense, dense places where people can collaborate. This was a story of one such place, maybe the first in the United States. This is a building in Boston where they had the first Radio Shack in the country on the ground floor. It wasn't really a Radio Shack. They sold telegraph parts, wires, and batteries and such. And the guy who owned this rented out the rooms upstairs to people anybody, but the people who rented them were people who wanted to be near the Radio Shack. So what happened was there was kind of a natural clustering of these kind of tinkerers in Boston back in 1879 when this building was put up. And the guy who rented this one was Alexander Graham Bell, a recent immigrant from Scotland who was playing with an idea that became the telephone. And a guy who rented one of these other offices, his name was Thomas Edison. And he was playing with an idea that became the light bulb, as I'm sure everybody knows, and a few other things besides. They both hired the same guy who worked in the shop downstairs, who happened to be African American, who was a really great drawer. He was great at art. He was a great artist, and he drew the patent drawings for both of them that were the basis for the patents for those great inventions, and apparently invented the screw in the light bulb as well. So what we see is that it's been a long time that we know that when you get people together, you start to create these communities of innovation. When people start to break down the barriers between them, a lot of great things come out of that. So Matt asked me to sort of tell a little bit of a snapshot story. I'm kind of out of time, so I will stop with this slide, of what we've done in Boston in terms of building such a center. I mentioned that we have about 1,000 startups together. We're looking to build something similar here in Miami. We're looking to collaborate with all of you to do it. Is Natalia Martinez here in the room somewhere? If you are, raise your hand. I don't see her. Our general manager, she'll be here at lunch, if you're at lunch. We are working next to the medical school, and in the Life Sciences Technology Building, and we are pulling together the wet laboratories, the community gathering spaces that allow you to have meetings and discussions with investors and entrepreneurs, and office spaces into one intense, dense innovation community. What we've seen is, I'm just not going to do this because this is how we've grown over 16 years, and I'm going to ignore that. But what we've seen is we get the founder of Android shows up. We get the big venture capitalists show up. We now have, we've gone from having $100 million of venture capital in our neighborhood to today having $14 billion of venture capital in our neighborhood. These are the kinds of things that you see happen. We see Google and Apple and Facebook and Amazon and Pfizer and Novartis, and all of these guys were not in our neighborhood, came in. Pfizer built a 1 million square foot research facility there, employing thousands of researchers, high-paying jobs. This is what you need to do. This is how you do it, is you create these clusters of innovation. There's a lot more I could say about this. I don't have time for it. Thank you very much. If you're here for lunch, I'll talk to you then. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tim. So as we think about building our innovation ecosystem here, wanted to bring up 4 people who are leading efforts right now, and efforts that really are all very new, things that have all started really within the last 3 years. And so to my left, Joanna Mikkola, who is the co-founder and CEO of WinCode, which she and her husband Juha launched 2 years ago when they came here from Toronto. Felicia Hatcher, who is the co-founder of both Code Fever and Black Tech Week. Laura Maidan, who's the managing director of Endeavor Miami. And John Hall, who's the executive director of 10,000 Small Businesses at Miami-Dade College. And so what we want to do is to take about 20 minutes, so it'll be really snappy, and have a little conversation about efforts that are underway now and building our innovation ecosystem here as we think about the arrival of things like CIC Miami and all the other things that are contributing to Miami's innovation ecosystem. So I wanted to start with you, Felicia. And so I wanted to start with you in thinking about, as we talk about an innovation ecosystem, you know, the isolation, the enemy of innovation is isolation, right? And so the more that we create an environment where people across the community are collecting, connecting, and colliding, sort of ultimately, sort of the richer the set of ideas created, right? And that's sort of our, and the greater competitive advantage that we'll see here. Talk a little bit about your decision to launch Black Tech Week, which is now in its 2nd year, and sort of what you hope to achieve with Black Tech Week as and your role as being a leader in Miami's growing startup community.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I started Code Fever and Black Tech Week with my husband, Derek Pearson, to really be able to address the need that we saw here in South Florida. As entrepreneurs here in South Florida over the past 8 years, you know, when we would walk into the rooms, we were the only person of color. And to us, you know, as honored to be in those rooms, that was also a problem that we saw that we wanted to fix. So Black Tech Week is essentially the programming arm of Code Fever, which does our technical training, full stack development. The goal that we were trying to accomplish, and we have been accomplishing with Black Tech Week, is one, essentially to rid our communities of innovation deserts, and having those innovation and technology and startup collision points and spaces in communities of color, but also being able to increase the deal flow and the resource magnetism in those communities. And we've been able to do so, definitely with the support of Knight Foundation and community organizations here in South Florida. Of, you know, our last event, Black Tech Week that we did in February, had over 1,700 participants throughout the entire week. We've had startup founders that have raised over $250,000 because of investors that they met at Black Tech Week. We've also seen an increase of the startup founders of color into the broader startup ecosystem here. So you've seen an increase of Black entrepreneurs at Emerge and at different meetup events. And we directly contribute that to the work that we're doing. And we're looking forward to that being a broader goodness gracious, a broader community effort.
And we can expect Black Tech Week, I mean, it was started, and so grateful at Knight Foundation to have the opportunity to support and continue to support Black Tech Week. It was 2 years ago, February started, then again this past February, and we'll see it again.
Yes, we'll see it again in February, the last week of February 2017.
And one thing that I was really impressed by, you know, everyone has been trying to get Roni Abovitz, the founder of Magic Leap, to appear at their conference. For those of you know, I mean, one of the best funded startups, tech startups in the world, as you know, is here in South Florida. We haven't seen the product, but they're sure impressing investors who they show it to. They've raised over $1 billion for. And Felicia is the one person that I'm aware of who actually got him to come speak at a local conference, which was just terrific.
Yeah, and that's where he announced his diversity hiring effort and using Black Tech Week as essentially a pipeline for them to be able to hire diverse candidates into their company.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So, Joanna, you and Yuha moved down from Toronto 2 years ago saying that you're going to launch a code academy with sort of this disruptive idea that we can take someone, that you can take someone from a standing start, 9 weeks later, that they can have the skills to get a job in technology. Talk a little bit about sort of what prompted you to launch that here, and the results that you've seen, how many students have gone through this, the impacts as a result.
Great, thank you so much. Let's switch. Again, thank you for having me, and you gotta love Matt Hagman, because he does our job for us, giving such a great intro like that. So originally from Finland, came here from Toronto, slowly making my way south. And I know everyone complains about 100 degrees and thunderstorms outside, but I love it when I walk outside. Novelty has not worn off at all. What we did is we saw a great opportunity to really train individuals and give them accelerated skills, particularly in web development. It's a huge needed skill. I bet everybody in the room has kind of had this conversation about needing more technologists and wanting to better understand coding in particular. So what we did is we looked at 3 cities in the US that really didn't have this type of education, where we could have a quick impact and be a positive community member, a part of building a great ecosystem. And the top 2 choices for us actually at the time, 3 years ago, were Los Angeles and Austin. And ultimately, we ended up choosing Miami because we saw that the greatest gap was here, which proved to be a great opportunity for us. So hindsight is 2020. It's been the best decision for our company. And since launching in May of 2014, we've graduated 300 developers. We have 3 locations. We've maintained a 96% job placement rate, primarily with local companies in South Florida within 6 months. Yep, so that's been fantastic. We have 80 companies that have hired from the program, many of which have hired multiple. So a lot of companies, once we get in with them and we work with them, they come back to hire more, which is a really great sign, and a great sign that there are great individuals here who just need access to training in order to really launch a career as a web developer right here in South Florida, not needing to go anywhere else to pursue that career. So I think that's really exciting, and there's some great stuff happening here. And just as Tim said, we work a lot with startups. So that's been really important for us and really important for the developers that we're working with. But we also work with companies like Ultimate Software, Modernizing Medicine, Citrix have all hired out of the program. So it's great to see that diversity.
And if you're looking for tech talent, be sure to get Joanna afterwards.
Yeah, and I'll quickly add that one thing that's exciting for everyone here is we recently launched our corporate programming. So the biggest thing we get asked about is anyone who's in a non-tech position feels a little bit disconnected from technology, but hears about it every day and knows they need to understand more and get educated. So we're launching that. The first company we're working with is Visa, the Latin American headquarters, and we're running a custom program with them where we're going to teach their non-tech team more about technology and bridging them more to innovation. So that'll be very exciting.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Please, you can give that a hand. So Lara, a theme of this morning, and talking about how Miami is a place that's so highly entrepreneurial, but one of the problems we're trying to solve here is to help companies scale. That's what Endeavor was built to do. Endeavor, of course, is in some 25 countries around the world, and Endeavor made Miami its very first city in the U.S. to launch in. This fall, it'll be celebrating 3 years. So as Miami startup scene goes, sort of the old person in the bunch, I guess, right? But not even 3 years old. Talk about the model, how Endeavor works, how it tries to help entrepreneurs scale, and the results thus far in Miami.
Thank you, Matt. So, hello?
Yeah.
Endeavor Miami's mission, for those of you who are not aware, is to select, then mentor, and accelerate the growth of high-impact entrepreneurs. And to us, high impact are those entrepreneurs that can really scale and take their companies to success. And that's one of the reasons why Endeavor launched in Miami. in addition to having the support of Matt and I Foundation. It was because Endeavor found that we've been talking about companies having difficulty scaling, but there was a great pipeline. So one of the conditions for Endeavor to start in a region or in a country is there's enough leaders that support entrepreneurship, and I have an amazing board. And then there's also a good pipeline of entrepreneurs. And I'm very happy to say that, you know, through our selection process, we've selected 14 companies, and we're industry agnostic, so our portfolio is very diverse. Johanna forgot to mention that she is an Endeavor entrepreneur.
Very proud entrepreneur.
And basically what we do is our entrepreneurs go through a very thorough selection process. Our mentors, who are world-class individuals that are either business leaders, investors, or entrepreneurs, help us drive the process and decide who can make it. Ultimately, entrepreneurs are selected internationally because Endeavor is global and is present in 27 countries around the world. And once the entrepreneurs get selected, our value proposition is that we help entrepreneurs think bigger, make better decisions, and we also help them to multiply their influence. So our goal is really help that scale. And when Endeavor researched about Miami's propensity for high impact entrepreneurship, found out that in Miami, one small company that's growing and becomes a large company creates many more jobs than a small business, right? So 20 more jobs than a small business and 160 more than a micro business. So that's really what we're trying to do here, to really drive and find those success stories to continue having a multiplier effect in our economy.
So, John, so 10,000 small businesses. Talk about, and this, again, launched in the last 3 years.
Yes.
Talk about both the results that we've seen so far, all the students that have gone through, but also dig into something that we've talked a good bit about, in that with 10,000 small businesses, these are growth companies that are going through the program, but perhaps in a way not going to scale like a venture that goes through Endeavor, that Endeavor selects, but nevertheless are companies that are embracing new innovations and technologies to spur their own growth. So a two-part to start off with.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and I want to just say first, thank you to the Knight Foundation for providing the ecosystem. It helps all of us achieve what we're doing. Without this environment, it wouldn't work nearly as well. The 10,000 Small Businesses program at Miami-Dade College was based on a funding of about $500 million by Goldman Sachs about 6 years ago. And it was based on the premise that there were 3 barriers a group of expert entrepreneurs or experts in entrepreneurship would find that were keeping businesses from growing. One, lack of access to capital, lack of access to business support services, and lack of access to quality business education. To jump to the end, right now the program nationally with 14 sites around the country has graduated 6,100 businesses. In Miami, we have screened over 1,000 businesses. We have served 230, of which 191 have graduated. We now have our largest class of 39 business owners. The average size is about $1.4 million, and they are not the kind of unicorn type companies that are going to scale at 40, 50% a month. But the recent study by Babson College showed that nationally the results are a decent track record. 30 months after graduation, 60% of our graduates have grown revenues by 106%. 30 months after graduation, our graduates have grown employment by 114%. The 230 businesses we have right now represent aggregate revenue of about $340 million, aggregate employees, baseline of about 3,900 employees. At the end of our 5-year grant, we project that will grow to about 6,000 jobs. And if we trend the way the nationwide data trends, and we're doing okay so far, we believe our graduates over the next 5 years will generate about 3,500 jobs.
Wow. So as we think, and we're just about out of time, I feel like we're just getting started with this terrific panel, but unfortunately we have to keep moving. But just as we think about an ecosystem, right, the different for an entrepreneur, getting the talent they need, the connections and the learning they need, the mentorship and the access to funding will actually all contribute to that, to really scale and grow at different stages of growth, whether it's Endeavor or 10,000 small businesses, solving the different needs for an entrepreneur. I just want to add one quick question to throw to the panel, and whoever chooses to take it can. But just that for corporates, they do have a role to play in this, and that we're seeing now, it's already been talked about, is corporate innovation. We saw Watsco, for example, a company, a multi-billion-dollar company in Miami, has actually built an in-house sort of innovation team that's building new ideas that just like it was a startup. And so talk about just maybe one of you, just because we have to wrap up, talk about corporates, how they themselves are sort of embracing startup culture within the organization.
I think you guys should chime in, but I'll really quickly say Watsco is a fantastic example. They're not a sexy business. They sell air conditioning units, commercial, but they consider themselves a startup, and they consider themselves a tech company first. So their primary team right now leading innovation is their tech team. And of course, I'm a little bit biased. They've hired 6 win coders. So, I do know they're doing incredible stuff. But corporations and companies larger have a big role to play in this because they need to start rethinking how they look at themselves. Thinking about how, not the tech industry, but how technology is really affecting their business.
Felicia, do you just want a quick final word?
Yeah, I think even with us and working with universities in that same capacity of social justice and innovation and inclusive hiring and what that means for essentially their bottom line, as well as working with small businesses here in South Florida and making them more tech-enabled so that they can compete and they can scale.
The conversation is just getting started, but we have to wrap it up. Please, 2 things. One, grab these folks outside and talk further to learn about the amazing work that they're doing. And secondly, let's give them a hand. For our next speaker, as we continue through the morning, and we're almost there with our program. We really appreciate you all sticking with us as we explore Miami's growing innovation ecosystem. We have the CEO of an organization that is a leader in driving innovation and driving Miami's tech community. Please welcome just an extraordinary leader in our community, the CEO of Emerge Americas, Javier Gonzalez.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, everybody. So I'm honored to be here when the Beacon Council, Larry and his team asked us to use Emerge as kind of an example of what can be accomplished when we all come together. It was really humbling for us, so thank you to Larry and the Beacon Council. So the best way that I think I could describe the way Emerge Americas has really come to fruition and really grown is really through a collaborative effort and really through an anecdote. So about 4 years ago now, Manny Medina, the founder of Emerge Americas, decided, okay, I think we really want to build this world-class technology event. We want to do it right here in Miami. And this is something that's never been done or never really been attempted. So what are we going to do first is we're going to get together a group of the community's leaders, the political government leaders, the business community, the civic leaders, and see if there is buy-in, if this is something that everybody wants to pursue. So I remember like yesterday we were at the conference room at Greenberg-Traurig with Jared as a gracious host. And there was the mayor, and there was the Knight Foundation, and then there was the Beacon Council, and the presidents of the local banks, the law firms, the accounting firms. So we made the pitch. We had a very early version of our pitch deck, and Manny talked about it. And when he wrapped up, he said, "Okay, so who's in? Who wants to make this happen?" And to his credit, and the mayor spoke about this a little bit earlier this morning, he was the first one to stand up and say, "Manny, we believe in this vision of driving an innovation ecosystem, of using an event like Emerge Americas to change the perception of Miami as a tech hub. And we're going to put our money where our mouth is." And sure enough, they were critical in that initial seeding. Next person to stand up was Matt Hagman and the Knight Foundation. And you've heard a lot about how critical they have been in building the ecosystem here locally. I could tell you that without them, especially at the inception of the idea of Emerge Americas, we would not be standing here doing what we're doing. And then Jared, obviously with Greenberg Traurig, have been key supporters of ours. So it's just indicative of the way that our community has galvanized around driving innovation. Because what happened once we had this government and business support, all of the universities came in. You know, everybody that you saw in the Academic Leadership Council stepped up and said, we want to showcase our innovation. We want to be leaders in what's happening as a tech hub here in Miami. So some of the results that you've already heard from the mayor, you know, our attendance has been growing, but it's the right kind of attendance. We've grown from 30 countries represented in our first year to 60 countries, and those are attendees that are coming from all over the world. You know, we've always played on the advantage that we have with that connectivity to Latin America, but what we have found is the rest of the world wants to use Miami as a platform to connect to Latin America and the US. So we've had strong representation from Europe. So that's obviously driving a lot of the economy and a lot of businesses to look at Miami in a whole new light. So that's really a big part of what we've been doing. And that perception change where Miami is really now on a global map in terms of technology and entrepreneurship is something that we've been driving for. So over the first 3 years of our event, we are very proud to have generated 4 billion media impressions, okay? And those are not that we're going out and buying advertising. Those are articles in Fortune, in Forbes, in the Wall Street Journal, in the New York Times. They're live broadcasts from CNBC and Telemundo on the floor of Emerge Americas that are positioning Miami as a technology and innovation ecosystem like never before, right? And that's really driving a lot of the different kind of collisions. People are coming here from all over the world to really meet and having those kinds of, that proximity that Tim talked about is something that we're driving towards and are very excited to be a part of this ecosystem, a part of everything that the Beacon Council and the One Community, One Goal is working towards. So I had some very brief comments because more than anything, what we wanted to do was show you what we've built at Emerge with the help of all of you and many other partners all over the world. So cue the video.
Year after year, thousands of entrepreneurs, investors, thought leaders, tech enthusiasts, and leading brands from around the world come together in Miami, the gateway to the Americas. Their journey is not for the beaches and nightlife. They come to the leading B2B innovation and technology festival, connecting the Americas. Discover Emerge Americas. Thousands fill the convention center, eager to connect with leaders and discover the latest trends. Dignitaries from around the globe convene here. Hundreds of thought leaders inspire attendees.
You understand the important role that Miami can play in all of this and how Miami can be the center of the activity that spreads the technology.
It's definitely an honor, a blessing, and something special to be a part of.
In 2015, the Kaufman Index named Miami the second most entrepreneurial city in the nation.
Startups are the seed corn of your economy and your community tomorrow.
We need diversity in tech to find the solutions.
The future success of our cities and urban areas is tied to our ability to continuously change, adapt, and to innovate.
A conference like Emerge, one reason we have it, is to expose you to other minds, other spirits, other ideas that could take you to another place in life.
It's powerful partnerships broadcasting live to the world. Witness the entrepreneurial spirit come alive in exhilarating pitches. Feel the adrenaline rush. It's a B2B marketplace like no other. Close deals, invest in the next great startup, discover the latest trends, connect with partners, industry representatives, and other tech enthusiasts. Promote your innovation. Educate an eager crowd, take in that inspiring message. Be part of the journey, and like every successful journey, you can't wait to start the next one. Your journey through innovation awaits. Emerge Americas, 2017.
Moving forward, and I'm glad that the mayor is still here because there's a lot of good news that's going to be reported now. The mayor mentioned all the job growth that we've had in Miami-Dade County. Well, we're going to verify that now as we bring up Dr. J. Antonio Villamil, the founder and principal of the Washington Economic Group and the Beacon Council Economic Roundtable Chair. He's got amazing news on job growth within our city. So let's bring up, as I know him as Tony Villamil, I know everybody in here does, so let's bring up Tony. Tony.
Hey.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I'm the numbers. It would take about an hour. No, I'm just kidding. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm like Nelson mentioned, I'm chair of the Economic Roundtable. We are the rocket scientists of the Beacon Council. We have analysts from the Port of Miami. We have analysts from the airport, from the business community. So we're the practitioners of the dismal science of economics, and we keep the numbers honest. And the numbers really show significant success of the One Community, One Goal initiative and the excellent business climate that we have created in Miami-Dade. And you'll see those numbers. In every aspect, we exceed the nation in employment growth at Miami-Dade, and we certainly exceed the nation too in terms of the targeted industries of all the efforts that we have seen, One Community, One Goal. So when we get together, we analyze the numbers. We give Jab Donath, the head of research at Beacon, a hard time, all of us, in terms of the actual data and the methodology that we use. We love to have lunch for data, and the dessert is the analysis that you will see here. So basically, Miami-Dade County transitions into a knowledge-based innovation economy, which is what you have heard throughout the day today. And using not only technology or developing technology, but also using technology in all of our targeted industries. So the Talent Development Network, the Academic Leaders Council, all of this is critical. The whole effort that is being made since 2012 when the initiative started. All targeted industries are becoming technology-focused and also innovation-driven. Think, for example, in the tech sector, which is relatively small, it's one of the targeted industries. We have spoken a lot about the ecosystem in developing our entrepreneurs and our innovation technology sector, which is critical. You can see the average wage while we're doing this. That's $102,000 a year in Miami-Dade County. And Miami-Dade job growth in this sector is greater than the national growth in the technology area. Now, all the targeted industries are not developers of technology, but they use technology and they use innovation in their productive processes. The wages of most of the targeted industries are higher than the average wage in Miami-Dade County. So the whole purpose of One Community, One Goal is really to lift up the average wage rates, to lift up the skill levels of our population, and it's happening since we started the initiative in 2012. The 7 targeted industries have seen job growth since 2012 at a higher rate than national job growth. And you can see them here: aviation, banking and finance, creative design, hospitality and tourism, and life sciences and healthcare, technology, trade, and logistics. Just to give you some aspects of this, you can see all sectors in Miami-Dade grew between 12 and the beginning of 16, grew 111,438 jobs. That's higher than the rate of growth of the nation. And also all the targeted industries, like I mentioned, had a higher growth rate than the rest of the nation. More importantly, a lot of people say, well, that has to do with the business cycle. You know, the economies are growing. But in reality, this has been the slowest national economic recovery since the Great Recession we had for many, many years. We haven't seen an economy of the U.S. growing at a significantly below potential. And we're doing better than the global economy, which is also important for us. So in other words, Miami-Dade is growing faster than the nation in many aspects, in spite of the fact that both economies are growing. So the business cycle is expanding, but we're expanding at a faster rate. And that shows you the efforts of One Community, One Goal, and the excellent business environment that we have. So all the industries that you see here, just to give you some sense of what we're doing here, for example, in terms of the targeted industries, the 44,858 that you see there, We had expected in 5 years to grow by 27,000. So after 3 years, we have exceeded the rate of growth of these targeted industries. We have created a total of 44,858 jobs. In Miami-Dade, all sectors of Miami-Dade, we had expected to grow by 75,000 with a business cycle on the upside. We have grown by 111,438. So Mayor, we're doing much better than the nation. The business environment is excellent. And your remarks are very well taken in terms of what kind of things we're doing in Miami-Dade and all the community effort we're doing through One Community, One Goal. I promised Bill Talbert, head of our Visitor and Convention Bureau, that I won't keep you for an hour. So I think my remarks are about 5 minutes, and I think I have exceeded that, maybe not. But bottom line is, we should all give each other a round of applause as a community. We are doing very well in Miami-Dade County. And in One Community, One Goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
Okay.
Folks, thank you for coming. This concludes our program, but it doesn't conclude our efforts, and it doesn't conclude what we're going to continue to do in the future with One Community, One Goal. So thank you very much. Enjoyed having you. Tremendous content. Matt.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I want to be very bottom line, right?